It's not just about the silence, it's about what that silence represents. In today's video, we're diving into why women often feel the loss of you more than you might realize, especially when you embody the principles of calm detachment and self-mastery. We'll explore how creating emotional space can spark a sense of longing and why your presence, when paired with Stoic strength, becomes something she can't easily forget. Stick around because what you're about to learn could redefine how you approach relationships and, more importantly, how you value yourself. 1. The memories that linger. Have you ever wondered why certain memories grow stronger when someone is nitrogen monoxide longer part of your life? Those shared experiences don't simply vanish, they take root in the mind, replaying and evolving into something even more potent. For her, these memories become a private film reel, replaying the scenes of your time together in vivid detail. The moments you shared, the small ways you made her feel noticed, and the comfort of your presence become amplified in your absence. She thinks about the times you paid attention to the things that mattered to her. Maybe it was the way you always knew when she needed a hug, or how you remembered that she preferred her tea with honey instead of sugar. At the time, these gestures might have felt small to you, but for her, they were everything. They symbolized care, thoughtfulness, and emotional safety. And now, with you gone, those seemingly ordinary acts have become extraordinary in her mind. Imagine you used to leave her little notes. "Good luck on your presentation today," or "I believe in you." Maybe you didn't even think twice about writing them, but she kept every one of those notes in a drawer because they made her feel valued in a world that often felt indifferent. Or perhaps you had a special tradition, like taking a late-night drive to clear your minds and talk about life. The sound of your voice and the calmness you brought to those moments are now memories she can't escape. Now, when she drives past that spot, or hears a song you once played during those drives, it's not just nostalgia she feels, it's the absence of you. What was once a casual, beautiful moment now holds an aching weight. For a Stoic man, memories like these are natural and inevitable. They are a testament to life's fleeting nature, a reminder that nothing is permanent. You carry them with gratitude, not regret. You don't dwell on what was, because you know the power of focusing on what is and what can be. These memories are part of life's flow, meaningful but not anchors that tie you down. Your emotional balance allows you to appreciate them for what they are, fleeting but beautiful parts of a shared human experience. However, for her, these memories are not as easy to let go of. When your nitrogen monoxide longer present, the mind fills the silence with reflections. She might remember how you comforted her after a bad day, how you listened when nitrogen monoxide one else did, or how you made her laugh when she thought she couldn't smile again. These recollections gain emotional weight because she nitrogen monoxide longer has access to the source. You. Absence has a curious way of making even the smallest moments loom large. Without your grounding presence, those memories start to expand, filling the void left behind. She may replay conversations, focusing on things you said or did that she barely noticed at the time. A compliment that once made her blush lightly now feels like a treasure she didn't fully appreciate in the moment. The places you visited together take on a bittersweet quality, and even mundane objects, like a mug you used to drink from, can trigger waves of emotion. In the end, memories are powerful because they remind us of what we value. And as she sifts through those moments, she may realize something profound. The way you made her feel wasn't ordinary. It was rare. That realization, though late, is often the loudest echo of all. 2. The what-if spiral. One of the most challenging aspects of losing someone isn't just their absence, it's the unanswered questions they leave behind. These questions linger, creeping into quiet moments and turning them into emotional storms. What if I had done things differently? What if I had been more understanding? What if we had just a little more time? These thoughts don't just fade away. They echo, growing louder as she replays memories, searching for answers that don't exist. For her, these what-ifs aren't harmless musings. They're seeds of doubt and regret that grow into a spiral of self-recrimination. Each unanswered question becomes a doorway to reflection, and often those reflections magnify your absence. It's in these moments that she feels the weight of what could have been and begins to question not just her choices, but her own worth. Imagine this. She's sitting alone in a coffee shop, the same one where you used to meet. The familiar smell of roasted beans and the chatter of strangers fade into the background as a memory of your laughter fills her mind. She asks herself, what if I had been more patient? Or, what if I had told him how much he meant to Emmy? The spiral begins, an endless loop of imagining how things might have turned out differently. As someone who embraces Stoic philosophy, you've trained yourself to face these questions differently. You know that dwelling on things outside your control serves nitrogen monoxide purpose. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You don't get lost in the what-ifs because you recognize that the past cannot be changed. You've learned to focus on what is, rather than what could have been, but for her, this is uncharted territory. Your absence, coupled with her unanswered questions, becomes a mirror reflecting both the good times and the things left unsaid. It's not just about losing you. It's about losing the version of herself she could have been if she had another chance. This lack of closure becomes a reminder of what was lost, making your silence and distance feel even more profound. Here's where the lesson lies. By embodying the principles of acceptance and self-discipline, you don't just navigate your own emotions. You model a way forward for others. Whether or not she recognizes it now, your ability to move forward with grace will stand out as a stark contrast to the emotional chaos of the what-if spiral. Ultimately, it's a reminder of the power of perspective. While you've chosen to step into the present and leave the past behind, she may still be learning how to do the same. And in that gap between her struggle and your peace, your absence speaks louder than any words ever could. Now, I want to hear your perspective. How do you handle those moments when the what-ifs start to creep in? Have you found ways to embrace the present and let go of what you can't control? Share your thoughts in the comments below or simply type, "I release what I cannot change" as a personal affirmation. Your voice might inspire someone else on their journey to inner peace. Let's have an honest conversation about something most people only realize when it's too late. Your uniqueness isn't just noticed while you're around. It becomes irreplaceable when you're gone. Think about it. You weren't just a fleeting presence in her life. You were the calm in her chaos, the steady hand when the world felt overwhelming, and the one who made her feel truly safe. That's not something people come across every day. It's rare, it's valuable, and it's something that stays with someone long after you've left. Let me paint a picture. You handled challenges with a kind of quiet confidence that's hard to find. Where others might have reacted with impulsiveness or frustration, you remained calm. While most people rush to fix problems for their own convenience, you took the time to truly understand her, to stand by her without making a big show of it. Maybe it was the way you listened, not just to her words, but to the emotions beneath them. Maybe it was the way you didn't need extravagant gestures to show you cared. You just had a way of being present in a way that made her feel secure. But here's the kicker. When your nitrogen monoxide longer there, that absence, it speaks louder than any words ever could. The quiet confidence you carried, the calm energy you brought into the room, the way you could make her feel that everything was going to be okay. Those things don't just disappear unnoticed. They leave a void. And that's where Stoicism offers you a profound truth. Stoicism teaches us that our self-worth is not tied to how others see us, but to how we see ourselves. It reminds us to focus on our values, our actions, and our character, not on external validation. This is what made you stand out in the first place. That kind of self-assurance is rare, and when it's gone, it's almost impossible to replace. Picture this. She's had a rough day. Work deadlines are piling up, her friends aren't available, and she's feeling overwhelmed. When you were in her life, you knew exactly how to step in without taking over. Maybe it was a simple, "Don't worry, you got this," that gave her the confidence she needed. Maybe it was just sitting with her in silence, letting her feel that she wasn't alone. You made her world feel a little less heavy. Now that you're gone, she's facing that same kind of day. Maybe, but there's nitrogen monoxide, one who knows how to support her in the way you did. No one who understands her rhythms, her unspoken fears, or the little things that make her feel okay again. And that's when she realizes something important. You weren't just someone she liked having around. You were someone who made her life better in ways she didn't fully understand until now. You see, when you carry yourself with the kind of confidence Stoicism encourages, you don't demand attention. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. Instead, your presence naturally stands out because it's rooted in strength, calmness, and authenticity. People don't always recognize it in the moment, but when it's gone, the absence is undeniable. It's like a masterpiece in a gallery. While it's there, it's admired, maybe even appreciated. But it's not until it's taken away that its true value is felt. That's the role you played in her life. You were steady, thoughtful, and intentional. And while you're not defined by whether or not she notices this, her eventual realization only highlights how rare your presence truly is. The truth is, being one of a kind doesn't mean everyone will immediately see your value. It means that your value is intrinsic. It's there whether or not it's acknowledged. When you're gone, the gap you leave behind is not just about your absence. It's about the qualities that made you extraordinary. So embrace who you are. The right people will see it. And for those who only realize it after you're gone, let that be a testament to the fact that what you brought into their lives wasn't just meaningful, it was unforgettable. You were, and always will be, one of a kind. Number 4. She feels it more than you do. Women tend to process feelings with an intensity and openness that may seem unfamiliar to you, especially if you've embraced Stoic principles. When a relationship ends or distance grows, it's not just the absence of your presence that she feels, it's the void of shared experiences, emotional safety, and the steadiness you once brought into her life. Suppose there was a disagreement that led to a parting of ways. While you approach it by reflecting inward, asking yourself what is within your control and releasing what isn't, she may find herself in an emotional whirlwind. She remembers the way you approached life with balance, the way you stayed calm under pressure, the way you provided an anchor in moments of uncertainty. These memories linger, and with them comes the realization of just how rare that emotional stability is. Women often process emotions in waves. One moment, they may feel anger or hurt, and the next, they're overwhelmed by nostalgia or regret. It's not that they're weaker, far from it. Their emotional landscape is often richer and more nuanced, and that depth can make loss feel more acute. For her, it's not just losing you as a person, it's losing the emotional space you created together, a space where she felt steady because you brought balance. Now consider this, your composed demeanor might inadvertently amplify that contrast. As a Stoic, you've cultivated a calm strength that allows you to weather storms without being swept away. This quality, which she may not have fully appreciated before, becomes strikingly clear in your absence. The steadiness that once grounded her now leaves a void, and that void often speaks louder than words. Let's say you chose silence after the end of the relationship, not as a tactic to manipulate her, but as a way to focus on your own growth. You didn't reach out unnecessarily or act on fleeting emotions because you understood that your peace of mind mattered more than trying to control outcomes. During this time, she starts to notice the stillness. The person who once brought stability and calm into her life is nitrogen monoxide longer there. She may replay moments where your presence diffused her stress, where your logic balanced her emotions, and she begins to understand what that kind of emotional balance truly meant. This is the power of silence and self-control. It's not about making her miss you intentionally, but about living your principles. By staying grounded, you send a quiet message about who you are, a person who values emotional discipline and understands the importance of inner peace. That strength leaves a lasting impression, even if it takes her time to realize it. So stay true to your principles. Continue to grow and cultivate your inner peace. You don't need to chase or prove anything. Your strength speaks for itself, and in time, she may come to understand just how rare and valuable that is. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect and share your thoughts in the comments below. How have you experienced the power of silence or the impact of emotional balance in your own life? Or if you're not sure what to say, simply type, "I value my inner peace," as an affirmation of your journey toward self-growth and emotional discipline. Your voice matters, and your insights could inspire others walking a similar path. There's something undeniably captivating about what we can't easily have. It's human nature to desire what seems just out of reach. Think about a time when someone you admired suddenly became less accessible. Didn't it make you wonder about them more? Perhaps you found yourself thinking about what they were up to, questioning if they thought about you too. This magnetic pull is at the heart of what happens when your nitrogen monoxide longer readily available. For her, it's not just about your absence, it's the mystery that unfolds in the silence. When you step back, she begins to ask herself questions. What is he doing right now? Why isn't he reaching out? Was he as invested as I thought he was? The mind tends to fill the void with thoughts. And often, that absence makes you stand out even more. But here's the thing. A Stoic man doesn't pull back to create intrigue as a calculated move. This isn't about mind games or manipulation. For the Stoic, it's about living with intention. It's about knowing that your time and energy are finite and dedicating them to pursuits that genuinely matter. Your personal growth, your goals, and your values. For example, you've been in a situation where things seem to plateau with a woman. Instead of chasing her attention, you redirect your focus. You dive into improving your health, taking on a passion project, or are strengthening your relationships with friends and family. You stop waiting by the phone, and instead, you're fully present in your own life. When she notices your unavailability, IT sends a powerful message. Not that you're trying to manipulate her emotions, but that your life is full and purposeful. You're not someone who clings or seeks validation. You've mastered the art of controlling your energy and only giving IT to those who genuinely value IT. This isn't about rejecting her either. It's about showing that your world doesn't revolve around her. And that's precisely what makes you magnetic. A man who's deeply invested in his own growth radiates a unique kind of confidence. He doesn't need her attention to feel complete. He's already whole. The irony is that this wholeness, this ability to stand strong and grounded in your purpose, makes you all the more appealing. IT shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, she's the one wondering if she's prioritized you enough, if she truly appreciates your value. A Stoic man's unavailability isn't a tactic. It's a natural byproduct of his priorities. By living intentionally and focusing on what truly matters, you create an energy that draws others in without you having to chase. And in this world of distractions and fleeting attention, that kind of depth and focus is a rare and irresistible quality. So ask yourself, are you prioritizing what truly matters in your life? Are you living in a way that commands respect, not through force, but through the quiet power of your presence and principles? When you do, you'll find that being unavailable isn't just attractive, it's transformative. One of the most powerful things someone will remember about you is the standard you set. Not just for them, but for yourself. These standards become your signature, a silent declaration of who you are and what you stand for. Think about IT, your ability to remain calm under pressure, your discipline when others falter, your unwavering commitment to your values. These aren't traits that fade away. They leave an indelible mark on the people who encounter them, especially someone who shares a close relationship with you. Consider this, you're in a relationship and life throws a curveball, perhaps a disagreement, a tough decision, or a moment of unexpected stress. While many might react impulsively or let their emotions take control, you stand firm. Instead of anger or frustration, you meet the moment with composure, reason, and thoughtfulness. This isn't just a fleeting reaction. It's a reflection of the standards you've cultivated. Your calmness becomes a stabilizing force, not only in the situation, but also in the relationship. Let's say there's a situation where she makes a mistake, and the easiest response would be to lash out or point fingers. Instead, you pause, listen, and approach the issue with understanding and clarity. That moment doesn't just resolve the conflict. IT teaches her something profound about how strength and empathy can coexist. When she reflects on IT later, she realizes not everyone possesses that level of grace and maturity. That's the standard you set, and IT stays with her, quietly shaping her expectations of what a partner should be. Now imagine what happens when you're nitrogen monoxide longer in her life. The void isn't just about your physical absence. It's about the absence of those qualities you brought into her world. She notices, often in subtle ways, that not everyone holds themselves to the same standards. Maybe she meets someone new who lacks discipline, reacts impulsively, or prioritizes convenience over principles. In these moments, your calm strength, your steady discipline, and your quiet confidence become the benchmark against which others are measured. It's important to understand, this isn't about striving for perfection or trying to be someone you're not. It's about consistently working toward the highest version of yourself. When you set and live by strong standards, you not only elevate your own life, you inspire others to raise their game as well. And this inspiration lingers, even when your nitrogen monoxide longer around to provide it directly. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste nitrogen monoxide more time arguing about what a good man should be." BU1. This simple but profound idea captures the essence of living by example. The world doesn't need more explanations or declarations of intent. IT needs action. Your daily choices and behavior are the truest measure of who you are, and those actions speak volumes to anyone paying attention. So what does this mean for you? It's an invitation to reflect on the standards you're setting, not just for others, but for yourself. Are you living in a way that aligns with your values? Are you cultivating habits and qualities that will make others better for having known you? When you embrace this mindset, you create a legacy that speaks louder than words. Because ultimately, when she remembers you, IT won't just be about the moments you shared. IT will be about the way you showed up, time and time again, as a man who stood firm in his principles. And that's a memory nitrogen monoxide one can take away. What about you? How do the standards you set for yourself shape the way people see you and remember you? Have you ever noticed the impact your actions and principles have had on someone close to you? Share your story in the comments. Your experiences might inspire someone else to reflect on their own journey. Or if you'd prefer, simply type this: "I'm setting my standards higher." Let's keep watching. Number 7, she starts questioning herself. When you step back and create space, something profound begins to unfold. Your absence doesn't just make her miss you. IT compels her to look inward and question herself in ways she may have never done before. Was she truly present in the relationship? Did she take you for granted without realizing IT? Could she have handled certain moments differently? Your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting back her choices and actions, forcing her to confront the role she played. For many women, losing someone they care about isn't just a moment of sadness, it's a trigger for transformation. Imagine you were always the reliable one, the one who consistently showed up, listened, and put in the effort. Over time, it's easy for someone to begin expecting that level of devotion without fully appreciating the energy IT requires. Now, with you gone, those gestures she once overlooked start to loom large in her memory. She begins to ask herself, was I too quick to criticize? Did I show him the same care he showed me? Did I allow my ego to get in the way of what we could have had? Your absence might be the very thing that forces her to pause and reflect for the first time. It's not about playing mind games or punishing her. IT's about creating space for her own growth. Without you there to fill the silence, she is left with nothing but her thoughts. And in those quiet moments, she begins to wonder, was IT really him? Or was it me? That's the power of your silence. IT doesn't just make her miss you, IT compels her to evolve. Let's think of it this way: when you water a plant every day, IT grows, but it also becomes dependent on that care. The moment you stop, the plant has to adapt to survive on its own. Similarly, by stepping back, you are allowing her to confront her own emotional and relational independence. She may realize that she leaned too heavily on you, or that she undervalued what you brought into her life, and in that realization, she starts to grow in ways she never expected. A.S. Epictetus taught, IT is not what happens to you, but how you react to IT that matters. By stepping away, you've chosen a response that prioritizes your own peace and self-respect. At the same time, Your silence gives her the space to take accountability for her actions and reflect on her role in the relationship. This isn't about bitterness or revenge. It's about understanding the dynamics of human connection. Sometimes, stepping back is the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself and for her. Your absence becomes a reminder of the value of your presence. It's a way of saying, I'm worth appreciating, and I won't settle for less. So ask yourself, what happens when someone finally sees your worth, not because you demanded it, but because they felt the void your absence created? That's the power of reflection, and that's the gift you've given her by stepping back. When you step out of someone's life, the impact of your absence is rarely confined to just that individual. It's like dropping a stone into a still pond. The ripples extend outward, touching everything and everyone in their path. Your absence, much like your presence, creates a noticeable shift, and its effects can be profound. Imagine this. She starts withdrawing from conversations with her friends. Her family notices that she's unusually quiet during dinner, and her social circle feels the weight of her distraction. Maybe she's scrolling through her phone, hesitating before typing a message to you she never sent. The absence of your steadying presence subtly reshapes her daily life. Her friends might ask, "What happened?" Her family might hear your name mentioned more often than before. Even those who don't know you personally might sense a shift in her energy, all because your nitrogen monoxide longer there. This ripple effect extends far beyond what you can see or hear, and this is where your Stoic mindset becomes your greatest strength. As a Stoic man, you don't chase after explanations or apologies to justify your exit. You recognize that true strength lies in maintaining your dignity through silence. Instead of engaging in drama or trying to control how others perceive your actions, you focus on what you can control: your own behavior, your own emotions, and your own narrative. When you choose not to engage in arguments or respond to baiting messages, you're displaying a level of emotional intelligence that sets you apart. Your composure sends a powerful message. You're confident enough to let the truth of your character speak louder than any words you could say. Think about the difference this makes. Instead of being seen as someone who is reactive or are emotionally unstable, your silence leaves room for curiosity. She starts wondering why you're so composed, why you're not chasing after her like others might. Her friends might even say, "He's handling this better than anyone else would," or "I didn't realize how much of an influence he had." This is the ripple effect you create, not just in her life, but in the perceptions of those around her. Let's say you and someone you deeply cared for have parted ways. In the immediate aftermath, she might expect you to plead your case, explain yourself, or fight to win her back. But you don't. Instead, you focus on yourself, your growth, your peace of mind, and your goals. You don't block her or lash out on social media. You simply remain silent, dignified, and steady. Meanwhile, she begins to notice the void you've left behind. Her friends might say, "He's not even trying to get back together." Her family might hear her mention that she expected more of a reaction. Slowly but surely, the absence of your energy becomes impossible to ignore. The ripple effect of your silence is a testament to your influence. It shows that your presence carried weight and that your absence does too. But the key is ensuring those ripples reflect positively on you. By staying true to your principles and refusing to be drawn into unnecessary drama, you uphold your dignity and showcase a strength that others can't help but admire. You become a reminder of what self-respect and emotional stability look like, a rarity in a world full of reactive behavior. In the end, your silence speaks volumes. IT tells the world that you value yourself enough to step away with grace. And IT leaves her, and everyone around her, wondering about the man they underestimated. 9. Moving on with strength when a chapter closes in your life, whether it's a breakup or any kind of separation, the most powerful response isn't found in words or gestures. It's found in your actions. Moving forward with strength and grace isn't just about showing resilience. It's about embodying IT. It's about demonstrating to yourself and to the world that you're capable of thriving. Nitrogen monoxide matter the circumstances. Now, let's be honest. IT's tempting to think about what she might think when she sees you doing well. You might imagine her scrolling through your social media, noticing the calm in your demeanor, or the upward trajectory of your life. And yes, part of her might recognize what she's lost, but as a Stoic man, the deeper purpose of your growth isn't to make her notice. It's to honor yourself. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from mastering our internal world. It's not about seeking validation from others or using success as a way to get back at someone. Instead, IT's about striving to live well because you value yourself. Ask yourself, who do you want to be in the aftermath of this experience? Someone who lets pain define them, or someone who uses IT as a stepping stone for growth? Every choice you make, whether it's going to the gym, pursuing a new goal, or simply maintaining your peace, is an act of reclaiming your power. Imagine this. You've gone through a breakup and it's fresh. The pain is there, but instead of wallowing or seeking revenge through attention-seeking actions, you decide to double down on your routines. You start waking up earlier, focusing on your fitness, diving into hobbies you've always wanted to explore, and connecting with friends who bring positive energy into your life. At first, you do it for yourself, and maybe, yes, a small part of you wonders if she noticed. Over time, though, something shifts. Your nitrogen monoxide longer concerned about whether she sees your progress or regrets her decision. You're too focused on your own growth to care. That's when the real magic happens. When she does see you, whether it's through a chance encounter, mutual friends, or social media, your calm and composed demeanor will speak volumes. You're not just doing fine. You're thriving. And here's the kicker. You're not doing IT to prove anything to her. You're doing it because you've realized your worth doesn't hinge on anyone else's opinion. For instance, imagine she hears from a mutual friend that you've been running marathons, excelling at work, or taking trips you'd always talked about, but never prioritized before. Maybe she sees a photo of you smiling with genuine happiness at a family event, or are surrounded by people who value your presence. The realization dawns. She didn't just lose someone who cared about her. She lost someone who could have been her partner in that kind of growth and joy. The ultimate strength lies in the ability to move forward without resentment. Stoicism reminds us that holding on to bitterness or anger only weighs us down. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Translated to your situation, this means you don't have to engage in petty games or retaliatory behavior. Instead, you rise above. When you choose to live well, not to spite her, but because you value your own potential, you become a living example of what self-mastery looks like. You show that loss, while painful, doesn't define you. And in doing so, you inspire others around you to see what's possible when you embrace life with dignity and purpose. Your ability to move forward with strength and grace becomes the ultimate reminder of your worth. It's not about flaunting success or making her regret her choices. It's about respecting yourself enough to prioritize your own growth. When you live this way, you send a powerful message. You're someone who knows how to create a meaningful, fulfilling life with or without the validation of others. And that is a strength nitrogen monoxide one can take away from you. So ask yourself, how will you choose to show up for your life today? Will you let the past define you, or will you let it refine you? The choice is yours and the rewards are immeasurable. Thank you for spending your time with me today, diving into the quiet power of absence and the profound lessons IT teaches us, not just about relationships, but about ourselves. As we've uncovered, there's a strength in stepping back, in embracing silence not as a tactic of manipulation, but as a reflection of your inner discipline and self-mastery. It's about living in a way that speaks volumes without ever needing to say a word. The lessons we explored today are deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy. Reminders that while we can't control how others perceive us or react to our actions, we can always control how we respond, how we grow, and how we show up for ourselves. The most impactful change begins within, and when you carry yourself with calmness, confidence, and clarity, your presence and yes, even your absence creates an undeniable ripple effect. As you close this chapter of learning, take a moment to reflect. How are you showing up for yourself? What standards are you setting? Not just in your relationships, but in every aspect of your life. Are you living in alignment with your values, cultivating the kind of inner strength that sets you apart in a world often dominated by noise and distractions? Your journey is unique, and your growth is yours to own. Embrace IT fully, knowing that the true measure of your worth isn't found in how others view you, but in how you value and respect yourself. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Share your thoughts or personal experiences in the comments below. I read every single one, and your input helps create a space where we can all grow together. If you found today's discussion helpful, give this video a like and consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from IT. Let's spread this message of self-mastery and strength far and wide. And before you go, check out the recommended videos on screen. Each one dives deeper into topics like Stoicism, relationships, and personal growth, offering tools to help you navigate life with calm and confidence. Thank you for being here. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay grounded, and keep building a life that reflects your worth. See you soon.